Well, hello there. This is CJ,
And this is Chip.
and we're coming to you today live from Spindle City Straight Talk. Today is February 26th, and I know you'll be seeing it after this date, but I wanted to make it clear on the date of the taping, because today we've become Contamination Network. It's a sad thing to say, but true. As hopefully many of you have been following on Facebook and through the local media, we have found out that our local landfill has had alleged illegal dumping of contaminant waste, which is already allegedly contaminating our groundwater and surface water over by the landfill. And this is dangerous because it just doesn't seem to work out well in the sense of nobody knows. I spoke with Mark Dakers, the Regional Director of Solid Waste Management out of the Lakeville office of the DEP, who said that I was wrong to call him because I have to go through the press office. But he did give me a little bit of information. As of this morning, DEP's position is they will not comment any further on this matter, and they're going to try to work with our local officials. But they're still not answering any questions. What we do know is that because of inaction by City Councilor Mike Mioza, a Freedom of Information Act request was filed. That request provided bits and pieces of information. That information provided that there is an area over by the landfill, which they're calling the disturbed area. It equates to about 20 acres of land, and it is unlined, and there has been illegal dumping there. Digging into that area has proven, allegedly, that it was done during the period of time that the city of Fall River allegedly owned the land. You'll notice I'm saying allegedly a lot throughout this story, and the reason I'm doing that is because nobody wants to claim ownership of this parcel of land. And what we do know, and Chipper and I will be talking a little bit about it today, is the transactions where this came from. Under anonymity initially, a previous city councilor came forward speaking about the ownership of the land from 1961 to 1965 during his tenure on the council. He was identified by reporters as being M. Earl Gaudette, who basically came out and blatantly said that the city did not own the land, but the Fall River Redevelopment Authority did. And they in turn transferred the land to Alan Jarabek. We have a problem. The waste goes down 11 to 20 feet. The groundwater can be found at 4 to 8 feet. There is an alleged bedrock slate which is keeping the water from going into the city water supply. There's also now questions of if the water supply, the groundwater supply, is trickling towards the Freetown area, so the people in Freetown are very upset. We don't have that as a fact. As a matter of fact, there are very few facts that we have on this whole story. The only fact that we do know is there's illegal dumping. It is 11 to 20 feet deep, and the groundwater is at 4 to 8 feet. The groundwater, the surface water, is contaminated, and a newspaper was found with a date at the period of time where the city of Fall River allegedly owned the land. We do also know that DEP has known this throughout all the expansions of the landfill for some time. And they had reports that go back to 2003 in regards to the contamination, or the alleged contamination. But yet, they still, even with citizens fighting against the expansion because of this alleged contamination, the DEP continued to approve the expansions. And now, Republic Allied wants to expand this landfill again. The mayor is on board with this idea because it's going to save him, or save the city, $5 million in dumping fees. I think the $5 million in dumping fees is a small concern at this point. I think the big concern is, what poison are we drinking? Chip, what do you think?
Well, I think this issue is extremely, probably the most serious issue we've ever dealt with, because we're not only talking about this constant shadow government that we operate under, but we're also dealing with a public health issue. We're being told, and I find it rather I find it rather comical that someone calls and says he wants to remain anonymous, and then says how long he served on a city council. It's pretty easy to figure out who you are if you tell them how long you served, because So that's number one. Number two, the fact is that he is alleging, and as CJ said, we're going to be using a lot of alleges today because there's no corroboration of anything here. He's alleging that this goes back into the 60s. And, you know, I have a serious problem with this. You know, number one, it's not an excuse that it's been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, to me, it's a condemnation of the process. The fact is, why during all these years, if in fact they're true with some of these allegations, that the city has not vigorously attempted to protect the citizens' health and protect us as taxpayers and as citizens. Why have they not filed the proper reports? Why haven't they done the test borings, and why haven't we been informed? It's government's responsibility to inform the citizens, especially in a public health emergency. And the fact is that we should have been informed. Every single step should have been taken to abate this and mitigate it. And they should have, if anything, erred on the side of caution. But what they've done is fundamentally try to just bury it under the rug. Now there are going to be questions as to the reports that were filed with the DEP. Were they in fact accurate? And if they were accurate, and this is a serious problem, did the DEP ignore that? Or did the city not report the full, give full disclosure even to the DEP? There are so many facets of what is going on in this community now. This is an indictment on the way this city is run by this government. We don't even, no one will even, we can't even figure out who owned it. And now we're expected to now accept the fact that we're gonna deal with it, and the excuse is gonna be, well, this happened before our tenure. Well, everyone from the first contamination till today, as far as I'm concerned, is culpable and should be held accountable.
You know, you're right, Chip. And the biggest fear that I have is that unless you, the citizenry, stop voicing your opinion and letting the city council, the mayor, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the federal EPA know that you won't tolerate this anymore, they're going to walk all over us. Fall River has always been, you know, the redheaded stepchild in the room, and we've gotten the last of everything. Currently, the city council and the city administration are deferring this matter to our state legislative delegation, our state representatives and state senator, to put pressure on DEP to come down and answer the questions. Well, I can tell you for a fact, and Chipper knows, he has seen the email as well, that the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the federal guys, are involved. They were requested to come in by private citizens to come in and investigate this matter, to investigate our drinking water, and to find out who's responsible for this. And the key statements in this was that there is as Chip said, a secret government, that nobody wants to accept responsibility. Everything is being deferred and answers aren't being given. And that the citizenry believe that the DEP and the various city administrations have all been involved in a conspiracy to hide this fact from the city of Fall River people. But just remember, we just raised your water rates, so the water's got to be good. You know, yeah, good with what? That's the question. What are you drinking? What are you cooking in? I mean, don't you have to think about it? We all remember when not too long ago we had to boil our water because of bacteria in the pipelines. And I have to say, why is nobody available? Amazingly, our mayor has no comments. Terry Sullivan, nobody's heard from him. Nobody's heard a word from the water department. The man who governs our water supply has nothing to say. But I can tell you one thing I found out. There is a report out there, and it's a big report. But because it was commissioned by a private entity, namely BFI, that report is not public information. So we have to try and cajole pay off, beat them with a stick, I don't know, the powers that be at BFI to provide a copy of that report. And I got that information directly from Mr. Dakers before he went into hiding and decided to not answer his phone or emails any longer. I've been working on this story for a while now. And if you've been following us on Facebook, you know we put them out there right away. We don't waste any time telling these stories. We chose not to go to last night's city council meeting because both of us knew that somebody would light the fuse on our firecrackers and we would blow up. And thankfully we didn't go, because in watching some highlights of the show or the city council meeting and hearing some of the commentary, luckily neither of us were there, because I'll tell you now, they would have heard it. But we've been telling you that there's a shadow government, that there are backroom deals. And the worst part about it is, and don't forget this, the mayor of Fall River has been conducting a backroom deal with Allied Republic, the owners of the landfill, to buy the parcels of land that are contaminated around the landfill in order to expand the landfill into those areas. Now, if there's already contaminants in those areas, and to expand the landfill there, we've got to put a liner in. How are we going to do that? We're going to put the liner in over the stuff that's already there and put more of a compression on that? And the thing is, we don't know what's in there. And I think that's the biggest fear. How do we know what's there? What kind of contaminants are there? Back in the 1960s and the early 1970s, there wasn't a lot in the regulations, and I'm going to defer those over to Chip because he knows more about those regulations than I do. But there weren't a lot of regulations governing what you could throw out and what you couldn't, what you could put in a landfill. You know, it was common sense type stuff. Don't put arsenic in there if it goes into the water supply. You know, that was kind of what you didn't do. But, you know, way back when, in the 1960s, the mayor then, John Arruda, also known as Johnny Dumps, that tells you something, okay, was going to get rid of the dump. The dump wasn't up at the airport where it is now. Does anyone remember where that was? It was Tucker Street.
That's correct.
And they had fires in that dump, regular fires. People would choke in the neighborhoods, and they wanted it out of there. Well, you know what they did? They got it out of there, all right. They just covered it over, and they built houses on top of it. So, you know, it's crazy the way we've done it because we don't know what's in that old landfill either. But in regards to the regulations and in regards to the poisons that could be in there, we know of some pictures and photographs of things such as electrical transformers. You know those big blue and gray boxes that are on the telephone poles that have big lines going to them? Those are the transformers. And the transformers sit inside a vat of oil. And that oil generates PCBs in it, if you know what PCBs are. They're carcinogenics. They cause cancer. As a matter of fact, those same PCBs are found down at the Taunton River at the city pier, and we need to clean that up. So we've seen pictures of those transformers over by our water supply. How do we know there's not some in the dump? How do we know what's in there? We need to know. Chip?
Yeah, well, this is a serious issue, and I'm glad you brought up the south end dump on Tucker Street, because we did have numerous fires there. We had a lot of fires there. We've also had fires at this dump. Mm-hmm. And this is another example of how dangerous this issue is, because we don't know how much damage these chemicals have done to people's health over the course. This is almost like the Erin Brockovich movie or something, because the fact is that for you out there who don't know how you fight a dump fire, since it's a deep-seated fire, normally these fires infiltrate deep below the ground and are impossible to get water on. The way you normally fight them is to basically make a hole, stick the hose into the ground and saturate the ground. So what does that do? Think about that. You send water down into the ground, which then saturates and then finds its way and migrates along the water table. So we don't even know how far even fighting those fires have pushed some of these chemicals. We don't know what these chemicals are. We don't know how long they've been there. We don't know where they've migrated. We are talking about a serious, serious health issue here. And the fact that they had this attitude that, look, if we just say, don't worry about it, that, and now they're gonna say it happened in the 60s. And these laws that we deal with today, which is so stringent, are a byproduct of things that happened throughout this nation where people were poisoned by companies, by illegal dumping, by dumping from factories, and people died, and people became ill because of this. And then somebody finally realized that we can't allow this, and for this city government to allow this to go and basically do just enough where they can say, oh, look, yeah, we did it. And I think we brought this up months ago on our show about the cobblestone and about the fact that we weren't only dealing with cobblestone, we were dealing with other materials which could be hazardous. So we're not just jumping on this bandwagon now. We were the first to give this to you, the public. We were the first ones to basically address this issue, and we all have to get in. I believe on the local radio show today, they're giving the email address that you can email, and you should all get on your computers and express your concern to this, not only to the DEP, but to your state representatives, your state senators, which again, they're deferring to our state senators. It's like, you know, we have a mayor who would call a press conference if they opened up a can of tomato soup, but now he doesn't want to comment. You know, the fact is that they don't want to comment now because they know that this is an extremely serious issue, and there are liabilities under this law, and who knows what kind of damage this has done, and what kind of lawsuits and what kind of class actions could be brought against this city and this government. And it's always been nobody knows. Nobody knows who owns the landfill now. Nobody knows where the test borings are done. Nobody can find the records. Nobody can find anything. Well, you know, the fact is, they are responsible to be accountable to the people. It's in our Constitution, in a state constitution. They are accountable to us at all times. They have not been accountable. They have done nothing but backroom deals. They have done nothing but gloss over issues and problems. And we've had a water department that has a history of never giving a straight answer.
Well, he gave us one straight answer. I remember that one. The regulations are too much. I can't keep up on top of them. Yeah, I mean, you were there. You heard that.
Yes, and I also heard him say at one time when he missed something, he was on vacation. Well, you know, I think we've said this before. He should have been put on a permanent vacation. When a department head says that he's overwhelmed by the mandates of his job, he shouldn't have that job. That's the reality of the situation. When the fire chief says, I can't deal with the fire regulations, or the police chief says, I can't deal with the laws, well, you shouldn't be the police chief or the fire chief. And when you're the head of the water department and you can't deal with regulations that protect the public safety, you should not be there. And how long has he been there and never given a straight answer?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, and I don't know how many people out there have noticed it, but I have. All of a sudden, this major issue, major public health issue, and I'm a public health nurse, and I'll tell you now, this is a public health issue. A major public health issue like this, and people start asking a lot of questions, and all of a sudden, diversion tactics go into play. And you know these always happen, Chipper. You know, there's always a diversion tactic. So what did they do? They said, well, we'll shut everybody up right now. We'll start filling what? Potholes. Because potholes are important, and they are. But you know what? You can fill the potholes, Mr. Mayor. You can fill the potholes, Mr. Pacheco. You can fill the potholes, City Council. But I still want to know what might be in my drinking water. What pollution may be leaching into that field. Do we need to get a hold of Erin Brockovich? Get her down here to do some digging? I mean, we really need to know. Chipper and I are only two people. And I've received phone calls from people out there that have said, please, we want to help. What can we do? How can we do it? I've told people, get a hold of this one. Put your name on the 10 citizens to file the complaints against the city and have the Attorney General handle them. it's you that's got to do it. We can't do it all alone. I mean, this is an unpaid position for both of us. It's not like we're making money on it. Although some people in the city think we're nobodies that are trying to make a name for ourselves. The problem is that I got involved in this because I, for the longest time, saw all the backroom deals and all the bull going on. And I said, I can't tolerate it anymore. I'm going to let people know. And I, got a hold of Chip, and we were talking one day, and both of us seemed to see eye to eye on a lot of the different issues. And one of the things we definitely see eye to eye on is that the government belongs to the people. And right now, you are excluded from what is going on. If they've known since 1961, according to former City Councilor Emerald Gaudette, president of the Maplewood Association, that the city of Fall River has known that dumping has been going on since then, that he was part of all of that. He's already said the city's culpable for this. Thank you, former City Councilor Emerald Gaudette. Do you know what that means if they are culpable? Do you know the money that gets involved? This could be devastating. Receivership could be a lot faster around the corner than Chipper and I had thought or even could see in our future. We have the potential here of living in a ghost town. Because if our water supply is that damaged, who's going to want to locate here? You can't drink the water. You're going to have to buy it from Poland Spring. And even Poland Spring is now, they're owned by Nestle. And Nestle doesn't provide spring water anymore. They provide purified tap water, which, if you remember correctly, a couple of months ago, the city council wanted to start selling our allegedly contaminated water as purified tap water. That would have made us look really good, huh? What would we have called it, Chip? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can call it business as usual in the city of Fall River. And as you said, this is a serious issue. We should know every detail as citizens, but more importantly, when we began this show, I think we said why we do this show. And we also encourage everybody to ask why. And we have to ask why contaminants have been in our city with the potential to poison the population, now according to a city councilor since the 60s, and this has not been a major health issue. Why has every single city council and government that we've had since the 60s, when a former city councilor alleges this was known, has continued to this point? Why hasn't some mayor, why hasn't some city council said, listen, we've got a problem, let's deal with it? But no, what do in this city? We continue to sweep things under the rug and have secret meetings, as the mayor does, and do everything behind the scenes. And we can't do this any longer. We have to show our outrage. We have to ask why we weren't told, and we want to know every single detail now. And I think it's time for CJ's commentary. It ought to be really good today. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't like using some of the allegories that I use. And right now, the only thing I can truly see through my glasses, which, by the way, neither one of us are wearing rose-colored glasses today, although we're probably going to get them, is that we live in a state of confusion amongst the people. But amongst the government, it's a planned confusion. And as far as they're concerned, the only thing we're good for is our checkbook. We don't worry about your water supply. We don't worry about the contaminants. We don't worry about your taxes. We don't worry about your excise tax. We don't worry about your fees. I mean, all we care about is write the checks. So if all of a sudden in 5 years we find out that we've been drinking some type of pollution which is causing liver cancer or kidney cancer or leukemia or umpteen number of different diseases, do we go back and sue the city of Fall River? There won't be a city of Fall River left to sue. We're talking these type of cleanups can take millions and millions and millions of dollars. And why all of a sudden did this information come to light? For the same reason that we kept pushing for the expansions. $5 million, $5 million, and the ability to hide the truth. And every administration has known. And they're not going to tell me they didn't. They don't care. I don't know if any of you remember the news stories about 10 years ago about asbestos and other carcinogens being trucked into our landfill and dumped there. And the then owners, BFI, were not doing anything about it. And the proof of that was the fact that along the highway exit ramp from Route 24 right up to the gates of the city landfill, there were pieces of asbestos fluff on the roadway. There were containers which contained carcinogen materials, cancer-causing agents. And they were found on the roadway because they bounced off the trucks because they weren't contained. When you do a contaminant cleanup of hazardous material, that material is contained. You don't just throw it in the back of a truck and throw a blanket over it or a net. You have to contain that stuff. And 10 years ago, we had news stories, front page headlines about it. But we didn't listen and we didn't talk. And then you get a smooth talking person who runs for mayor, and you want him because he can sing and dance. And then you want him because we're going to give him another chance. He's a nice guy. He's young. He's exciting. He's better than her. And what happens? We get lies, more lies, and continued lies. This is the type of government you want. You can keep it. You wonder why people leave? Because they know they're not going to make anything here. The Herald News had a poll. What kind of Fall River person are you? And I took that poll, and I came up as Emerald Lagasse. Why, I don't know. Maybe because I go around telling everyone, bang! But I'll tell you, it's scary to think that they only put the positive aspects of Fall River. When you think of Fall River, what do you think of? Home sweet home, persevering, question, statements like that. When I think of Fall River, I think of failure, dump, bankruptcy, because I'm a realist. But you say I'm a negative person. All I am is speak is negativity. No, I speak the truth. And it's time for you to need the truth. City Council, you are culpable. Mr. Mayor, you are culpable. From 1961 to present, every person who has served in one of those seats, who has served in administration, you are culpable. You have lied, continue to lie, and you continue to do your backroom deals. All you've ever cared about is making sure you line your pockets and getting your next best job in political appointments. All you have to do is look at BCC and look at UMass Boston. It's time for it to stop. We are not going to be the stepping stone for you to make your next best offer on your next best salary. That's been proven by a city councilor who gave it up to be a city administrator, to say, I don't care because I need the money. It's my next best step. That's what's coming to Fall River. I'm telling you now. Our little chaperones that we have on our show, that's what's happening to Fall River. And that is the end of my commentary.
Well said. City Council, Mayor, do your job.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week here on Spindle City Straight Talk.